A single whispered word could shatter a throne. In the feudal age, information was the ultimate currency of power, more valuable than any sword or chest of gold. We are uncovering the 15 hidden networks of spies, messengers, and codes that secretly shaped the medieval world. You will discover how clandestine operations and ingenious ciphers decided the fate of kingdoms, revealing a legacy that still echoes in our modern systems of intelligence. How did a lone rider outrun an army with nothing but a memorized message? What secret was so dangerous it could never be written down? By the end, you will see the medieval era not as a time of simple knights and castles, but as the sophisticated birthplace of espionage. What does it truly take to control a world built on secrets? The Vatican's power reached far beyond its walls through a web of holy diplomats. These papal legates and nuncios moved through royal courts and distant bishoprics with the authority of the Church, but their mission was twofold. Officially, they were spiritual envoys. In reality, they were master observers, collecting whispers of rebellion, details of military alliances, and rumors of doctrinal dissent. They documented everything from the loyalty of a local baron to the financial health of a kingdom, compiling reports that transformed spiritual journeys into intelligence operations. This network gave the Pope a panoramic view of Christendom's political landscape, making him the most informed leader of his time. How did they manage such a vast flow of information across hundreds of miles? The system relied on a trusted and resilient chain of communication. Sensitive reports did not travel by regular post. Instead, they moved along protected routes, carried by monastic couriers who were bound by vows of obedience and secrecy. These messengers were not ordinary riders. They were integral to the Church's own infrastructure, moving between monasteries and abbeys that served as secure way stations. This network of holy houses functioned as the medieval equivalent of a secure server network, ensuring that the Pope's commands and the legate's intelligence could travel across Europe with a speed and confidentiality that kings could only envy. It was a stunning demonstration of how faith and governance intertwined, proving that the control of information was itself a form of supreme authority. That lone rider carried more than just a sealed letter. He carried the very authority of the king himself. The royal messengers of the Capetian kings were the lifeblood of a growing nation, a dedicated corps of men who turned the scattered territories of France into a unified realm. To challenge them was to challenge the crown, a fact enforced by the special privileges they carried. A royal messenger could demand a fresh horse from any stable, command safe passage through a lord's lands, and expect shelter at any royal castle. This was not mere courtesy, it was the law, a direct assertion that the king's business superseded all local loyalties. Their saddlebags held the instruments of state, from mundane tax records to decisive military orders that could move armies. In an age of parchment and ink, the most sensitive information never touched the page. Messengers would commit entire treaties or reports to memory, becoming living, breathing documents. If captured, they could reveal nothing because there was nothing to find. This incredible efficiency slashed delivery times across the kingdom, allowing the crown to react to a baron's rebellion or a foreign threat with a speed that its enemies could not match. It was a stark lesson in power, proving that controlling the flow of information was the first step to controlling the land itself. But how did they protect the messages that had to be written down? This constant threat of interception forced the development of a new art, the art of secret writing, where words themselves would become weapons in a silent war. Silk was more than a luxury, it was a perfect disguise. For the Byzantine Empire, the great trade routes stretching to the east were not just avenues of commerce but the central nervous system of its survival. Surrounded by rivals, the emperors in Constantinople turned their merchants into an elite corps of deep-cover agents. These were not simple traders haggling over prices. They were observers embedded in the courts of the Sasanian Persians and the camps of Arab chieftains, their true mission hidden beneath bales of cloth and sacks of spices. Official military manuals, like the Strategicon, explicitly instructed these agents on what to look for, from counting the ships in a harbor to gauging the morale of a distant army. A merchant could ask questions a soldier never could, learning of an enemy's plans years before their armies began to march. The intelligence they gathered allowed emperors like Justinian to make moves that seemed almost prophetic, forging alliances or reinforcing borders with an uncanny sense of timing. But how did a spy in a Persian market get a vital report back to the imperial capital, a journey of months through hostile lands? The message itself had to be as invisible as the agent. Coded details were stitched into the intricate patterns of a silk tapestry or concealed within the hollow core of a merchant's scale weight. These seemingly innocent trade goods would then travel the long road west, passing through many hands, each leg of the journey managed by another trusted intermediary in a relay of silence. This brilliant fusion of commerce and espionage created an intelligence web that spanned continents, a testament to the Byzantine understanding that information was the ultimate trade good. And just as these merchant spies used hidden codes, another network was perfecting a language of secrets so powerful it was believed to be magic. High in the mountains, a single traveler moved with a purpose known only to a few. This was no ordinary pilgrim, but a human vessel carrying a message that could topple a vizier or terrify a sultan, a secret so potent it existed only in memory. The Hashashin courier system was the invisible thread that connected a chain of remote fortresses, from the legendary Alamat in Persia to the Syrian highlands. These messengers were selected with immense care, chosen for their absolute loyalty, their stealth, and their intimate knowledge of the most treacherous mountain paths. They often traveled in the perfect disguise of a pilgrim or a simple merchant, their true mission hidden behind a facade of piety or commerce. Chroniclers like Marco Polo would later marvel at their ability to cross hostile territories unseen, transmitting orders for political actions that would ripple across the Muslim world. They carried nothing incriminating, committing every instruction to memory and using pre-arranged coded phrases to verify their identity. The true power of this network was not just in the messages it delivered, but in the fear it inspired. The mere knowledge that these unseen couriers could be anywhere, that a whispered word could trigger a devastating act, created a powerful psychological weapon. It paralyzed their enemies with a constant, gnawing uncertainty, proving that a small, dedicated network could project immense power through the absolute control of information. This chilling efficiency, however, stood in stark contrast to another, far more visible network, one that operated not from mountaintops but from the quiet heart of medieval society, within the hallowed walls of monastic scriptoriums. Within the quiet hum of a monastic scriptorium, the scratch of a quill could hide a second, silent conversation. While monks devotedly copied psalms and gospels, some were also perfecting the art of secret writing, transforming their scriptoriums into the earliest cryptography labs. These religious houses were power centers in their own right, managing vast estates and influencing royal politics. To protect their interests in land disputes or delicate negotiations with nobles, they needed a way to communicate in absolute secrecy. The solution was hidden in plain sight within the very manuscripts they produced. They employed cunning techniques like the Caesar cipher, a method where each letter in a message is shifted a fixed number of places down the alphabet. A simple shift of 3, for instance, would turn the word king into NLQJ. Other monks devised more complex monoalphabetic substitutions, creating entirely new alphabets that rendered their correspondence unreadable to any prying eyes. A seemingly mundane letter about monastery supplies could, in reality, contain coded instructions for aligning with a powerful baron against the crown. The survival of these encrypted manuscripts reveals a world of clandestine concerns simmering beneath a surface of piety, but crafting an unbreakable code was only half the battle. How could such a sensitive document travel 50 miles to a bishop or a sympathetic lord without being intercepted? The coded parchment was useless without a delivery system that was equally secure, relying on a separate, highly disciplined network of carriers whose organization was a marvel of medieval logistics. A single rider could change horses and gallop onward without ever breaking his pace. The imperial post of the Holy Roman Empire stitched together a patchwork of hundreds of independent states, from the Alps to the North Sea. This was not a single, unified service like the Roman system it sought to emulate, but a fragile network of relay stations operated by trusted noble families. These families held the right of safe conduct, a privilege that came with a heavy responsibility, the obligation to provide fresh mounts and secure passage for the emperor's couriers. In an empire constantly threatened by the expanding Ottoman forces to the east, this web of way stations became the central nervous system for survival. A report of Ottoman troop movements spotted on the Hungarian plains could reach the emperor in Vienna with a speed that local princes could scarcely comprehend. The same network carried binding decrees from the imperial diet and urgent intelligence on the political machinations of rival dukes. It was a brilliant, if precarious, solution to the empire's greatest weakness, its deep decentralization. How could a single ruler command the loyalty of so many quarrelsome princes, control the flow of information, and you control the realm? Yet this very system, built on speed and trust, created a monumental vulnerability. Every station master, every groom handed a fresh horse, was a potential leak. The integrity of the entire empire could be compromised by one disloyal noble along the route, a flaw that would soon force the Habsburgs to invent entirely new methods of protecting their most vital secrets. Beneath the glittering facade of the Republic, a secret committee held the true reins of power. The Council of Ten, created to thwart conspiracies, evolved into a formidable intelligence directorate that protected Venice's vast maritime empire with ruthless efficiency. This small, powerful body of patricians commanded a web of agents stretching from the banks of the Thames to the heart of the Ottoman court. Their informants were not just Venetian nobles, but also bribed officials, merchants, and even servants placed in rival courts, all feeding a constant stream of intelligence back to the Doge's palace. This information was their lifeblood, detailing Spanish trade routes, Ottoman naval movements, and the whispered plots of their own ambitious nobility. To mislead their enemies, the council perfected the dark art of disinformation, planting false rumors and running double agents whose reports sowed confusion and paranoia in foreign capitals. The secrets they gathered were considered so sensitive that they were often recorded in complex ciphers, their true meaning locked away from all but a few. These encrypted messages then raced across the Mediterranean on swift Venetian galleys, outrunning both storms and spies. This highly organized state espionage was the shield that allowed a single city, built on water, to dominate trade and politics for centuries. But in a society where the state watched everyone, how could an individual merchant or diplomat keep their own private correspondence safe? The very ciphers used by the council inspired a new need for personal secrecy, driving the development of private codes for those who had something to hide from the watchers themselves. A diplomat's quill could rewrite a map without a single soldier ever moving. In the fractured world of Renaissance Italy, where city-states like Florence, Milan, and Naples waged a constant, silent war of alliances, the most crucial battles were fought not on fields but in coded dispatches. Ambassadors lived in a state of perpetual vigilance, their diplomatic pouches filled with letters that looked like gibberish to any intercepting agent. A man like Niccolò Machiavelli did not just write about power, he practiced it through ink and cipher, encoding every delicate negotiation, every mercenary captain's price, and every hint of a rival's betrayal. The systems they used were marvels of early cryptographic engineering. They employed cipher wheels, intricate disks of paper or metal that could align alphabets in countless combinations. To further confuse any codebreaker, they peppered their messages with nulls, meaningless symbols inserted to waste a cryptanalyst's time, and homophones, where a common letter like E could be represented by 5 or 6 different characters. This made frequency analysis, the standard method of cracking simple codes, nearly useless. The survival of these letters today offers a raw, unfiltered view of realpolitik in action, revealing the deep paranoia and brilliant deception that defined the era. To break a rival's code was to hold their future in your hands, an intellectual conquest that could neutralize an army. This high-stakes duel of wits among states, however, was mirrored by a more intimate and equally perilous contest, one conducted by the secret messengers of Europe's great noble houses. A trusted servant's loyalty could be the only thing standing between a great house and its ruin. In the chaotic England of the 15th century, during the long and bloody Wars of the Roses, the crown was not the only power playing the espionage game. Great baronial families like the Nevilles, the Percys, and the Pastons operated their own intricate spy networks, private intelligence services dedicated to navigating a world where today's ally could be tomorrow's executioner. These systems were woven from the very fabric of feudal life. A household retainer, a local priest, or a bribed official in the rival duke's court could all become vital sources, feeding information on troop movements, secret alliances, and whispered plots directly to their lord. The remarkable survival of the Paston letters offers a raw, intimate view into this daily struggle. Their correspondence is filled with urgent pleas for news, warnings about suspicious travelers, and coded assessments of a neighbor's military strength. Every piece of gossip was a potential weapon, and survival depended on knowing more and knowing it faster than your enemy. To get this information from one besieged castle to another required messengers of absolute discretion. These couriers often carried letters sealed with their lord's distinctive signet, a mark of authenticity that could mean the difference between a warm welcome and a cell in the dungeon. Some used even more subtle methods, like a particular colored ribbon on a cap or a specific phrase uttered at a gatehouse, to prove they were who they claimed to be. This decentralized web of private espionage reveals the true nature of feudal power, a fractured landscape where every great lord was a king in his own lands, and information was the sharpest tool for defending them. In such a climate of pervasive suspicion and civil war, the very concept of truth became a casualty, creating a fertile ground for a different kind of operative, one who did not just carry messages but manufactured reality itself. A mercenary captain's greatest weapon was not his sword, but the rumor bought from a corrupt official. In the cutthroat world of the Italian condottieri, companies like the famous White Company operated as ruthless corporations, and their survival depended on an intelligence network as sharp as their lances. Their scouts were more than just lookouts, they were agents of a new kind of war, one fought for profit. While they mapped the terrain and counted enemy troops, their most vital work happened in the taverns and back alleys of the very cities that hired them. There they would cultivate informants, a disgruntled clerk in the paymaster's office or a guardsman with debts to pay. A single piece of information, like the exact date a rival company's contract expired or the secret arrival of a Swiss pike block, was worth a fortune. This intelligence allowed a cunning captain to demand a higher price, abandon a losing battle just in time, or even switch sides at the most opportune moment. The line between military scout and corporate spy vanished completely. For these men, knowledge was not about loyalty to a crown or a cause. It was a direct and tradable commodity, as crucial to their business as the strength of their armor. This cold, commercial approach to espionage reveals a stark truth. Medieval warfare was often just business by other means. Yet, in the shadows of this profit-driven world, an entirely different kind of network was taking root, one motivated not by gold, but by a deep and dangerous faith. A weaver's hands moved with practiced rhythm, but the threads he carried were not all made of wool. In the sun-baked hills of Languedoc, the Cathar spiritual elite, known as the Parfaits or Perfect Ones, lived a dangerous double life. While the armies of the Albigensian Crusade swept through the region, these men and women became the secret arteries of a forbidden faith. Disguised as traveling merchants, weavers, or simple pilgrims, they carried heretical texts and vital messages between isolated communities, their spiritual mission hidden beneath the mundane tools of their trade. Persecution forced them to master the art of covert movement, sticking to old trade routes and traveling under the cover of darkness. They relied on a web of trusted sympathizers, peasants and nobles alike, who offered safe houses and silent support. The penalty for discovery was imprisonment, torture, or the pyre, making every journey a test of faith and nerve. How could they coordinate their resistance and preserve their beliefs under the ever-watchful eyes of the Inquisition? Their survival depended on a communication system built for absolute secrecy. Written documents were a profound risk, so the Parfaits relied overwhelmingly on oral transmission, memorizing complex theological arguments and organizational details. On the rare occasions they committed words to parchment, they used simple but effective codes, substituting words or names to baffle any intercepting agent. A letter about a wool shipment might, in reality, detail the planned movement of a Parfait to a new village. This hidden network was the only thing holding their faith together, a lifeline of information that provided theological cohesion and a structure for quiet defiance. It was a stunning demonstration of how an oppressed group could use clandestine communication not for conquest but for cultural survival. The very existence of this network, however, presented an intolerable challenge to the established powers. The Inquisition's response was a brutal, systematic campaign of counterintelligence. Its agents infiltrated communities, turned sympathizers with threats or promises, and meticulously mapped the social connections that formed the network's backbone. The techniques they perfected to dismantle the Cathar communication lines would become a dark blueprint, a chilling new art of interrogation and espionage that would echo through the centuries. A whispered accusation in the confessional could seal a person's fate. The medieval Inquisition did not rely on armies to enforce its will. It built a weapon out of fear itself, weaving a web of informants that turned every village and town into a potential courtroom. Following its formalization in the 13th century, this institution empowered traveling inquisitors who moved from diocese to diocese, but their true power came from the local networks they cultivated. Official manuals like the Directorium Inquisitorum provided detailed instructions on how to solicit and process denunciations, creating a self-perpetuating system of surveillance. Your neighbor, your business rival, even a family member could be an informant, motivated by genuine religious zeal, by a promise of monetary reward, or simply by a long-held grudge. This culture of denunciation meant that a careless comment about a church doctrine or a refusal to eat meat on a Friday could be reported, investigated, and entered into a growing dossier. The inquisitors were masters of data collection, cross-referencing rumors from different sources to build a case not on solid evidence, but on a pattern of hearsay. This was information wielded not for conquest, but for absolute social control, a chillingly effective method that made the entire community complicit in its own policing. It stands as one of the first systematic experiments in mass surveillance in European history, a dark legacy where the weapon was not the rack but the rumor itself. While this web of fear sought to control thought by rooting out doctrinal secrets, a far older and more benevolent network was working in the shadows, fighting a desperate battle to save the secrets of the ancient world from oblivion. That sealed letter in Alexandria was a capsule of light traveling through a dark age. While empires rose and fell, a different kind of power was being curated and protected by the Jewish merchant couriers of the Mediterranean. Scattered across the diaspora, from the bustling ports of Egypt to the scholarly centers of Catalonia, these families maintained a resilient web of communication built on kinship and absolute trust. A merchant in Cairo did not just write to his cousin in Barcelona about the price of pepper or saffron. Their correspondence, often written in a mix of Hebrew, Arabic, and Latin, could contain groundbreaking astronomical charts, translations of Greek philosophy from Arabic into Hebrew, or revolutionary medical texts. They used the mundane language of commerce as a perfect disguise, embedding intellectual treasures within discussions of ledger books and shipping schedules. This was a republic of letters operating in the shadows, an informal intelligence network dedicated not to political secrets, but to the preservation and advancement of human knowledge. The couriers who carried these messages were more than just employees. They were trusted associates, often family members, who understood the profound value of their cargo. They navigated the perilous boundaries between Christian and Muslim kingdoms with a unique fluidity, their cross-cultural connections granting them access that was denied to almost everyone else. This network became the critical lifeline for the transmission of ideas that would later ignite the European Renaissance, proving that the most powerful intelligence is often knowledge itself. The constant need to protect these precious exchanges from prying eyes or zealous authorities pushed these communities toward a silent revolution in secrecy. They began to refine their commercial codes into more sophisticated ciphers, transforming their ledgers into locked vaults of information, a development that would soon captivate the most brilliant minds in Europe. The flicker of a single candle illuminated a world of secrets. In the Royal Chancery of England, a clerk worked late into the night, his quill scratching out a message that would decide the fate of a French campaign. But the words he wrote were not for common eyes. Names of key nobles became strange symbols, locations in France transformed into a sequence of numbers. This was the birth of state-sponsored cryptography, a direct response to the vulnerability of open communication. As monarchies like England and France consolidated their power, their central administrative hubs, the chancelleries, evolved into fortified workshops for the creation of official ciphers. These systems were no longer the private tools of monks or merchants. They were instruments of statecraft designed to protect the crown's most vital secrets. Simple substitution ciphers, where one letter consistently replaced another, proved too easy for enemy agents to crack, so the chancelleries innovated, developing complex codebooks where entire words or sensitive phrases were represented by numbers, arbitrary symbols, or even combinations of both. A single symbol could now mean treason. A specific number could signify the Duke of Burgundy has allied with us. The survival of these cipher keys offers a stark window into the fears and priorities of the time. The codebook used by Mary, Queen of Scots, for instance, was a desperate attempt to hide her conspiratorial correspondence, an effort that ultimately failed with tragic consequences. This created a relentless intellectual arms race, where each new cipher developed by a royal codemaker was a challenge met by a rival's codebreaker. This high-stakes duel, fought in quiet scriptoriums, laid the essential foundation for the entire science of modern cryptography. All this effort, all this secrecy, served one ultimate purpose: to manipulate events from the shadows, an art that would soon find its most eloquent and dangerous expression. A troubadour's melody in a crowded tavern could do more damage than a volley of arrows. His song, a catchy ballad that mocked the English king's failures, was not born of simple creativity. It was a weapon, quietly commissioned by a French nobleman to turn public sentiment during the long agony of the 100 Years' War. This was the 15th network, the shadowy world of propaganda and disinformation agents, where the battle was not for land, but for the minds of the people. Beyond the secret codes and hidden messengers, feudal powers understood that to control the story was to control reality itself. Royal courts patronized chroniclers to write official histories that glorified their reign and painted their enemies as monstrous tyrants. A strategically planted rumor in a bustling marketplace, spread by a paid agent, could destabilize a rival lord's authority or justify an impending invasion. The Church, with its unmatched reach, used its pulpits to rally entire populations for crusades or to publicly excommunicate political opponents, branding them as enemies of God. This was information warfare in its most potent form, manipulating the very concept of truth to mobilize armies, legitimize power, and ensure obedience. The troubadour, the chronicler, and the preaching friar were all nodes in this vast, informal network, proving that the pen and the song could indeed be mightier than the sword. Having journeyed through these 15 intricate systems, from the Vatican's holy diplomats to the whispers of the troubadour, a single, powerful question now emerges: what timeless thread connects them all, and how does their silent, centuries-old war still shape the world we live in today? A single thread pulled in Paris could unravel a conspiracy in Cairo. The 15 networks we have traced were never truly separate. They formed a single, vast, and invisible web draped across the medieval world. Picture this intricate tapestry where the silk of a Byzantine merchant spy crosses the path of a Hashashin courier on a mountain trail. Imagine a coded dispatch from a Venetian agent, its cipher principles borrowed from a Jewish scholar's work, being carried toward Rome by a monastic messenger who answers to the Pope. These systems did not operate in a vacuum. They constantly intersected, competed, and sometimes, quite unknowingly, aided one another. The efficiency of the Venetian state spy network, for instance, often relied on its ability to subvert or intercept the messengers of its Genoese or Ottoman rivals. A royal French courier, racing toward the coast with orders for an English campaign, might be carrying a message encrypted using a method perfected in an Italian diplomat's scriptorium, a method itself rooted in cryptographic techniques preserved for centuries by traveling scholars. This was not a series of isolated secret societies, but a complex and dynamic ecosystem of intelligence. Information was the lifeblood that flowed through its veins, driving political alliances, military campaigns, and the very transmission of knowledge that would end the so-called Dark Ages. Recognizing this deep interconnectedness forces us to abandon the myth of a simple, isolated past. The feudal world was, in fact, a crucible of intense and sophisticated information exchange. The true hidden network was the sum of all these moving parts, a global nervous system in its earliest, most ambitious form. Its legacy is the world we live in now, a world built on the simple, ancient truth that to control the flow of information is to shape the course of history itself. Our journey through the shadows of the feudal age reveals a world rebuilt not in stone but in whispers. We have traced the 15 hidden networks, from the papal legates mapping the soul of Christendom to the royal couriers who were the living, breathing law of the land. We have walked with Byzantine merchant spies, their silks hiding military secrets, and sat with monks in quiet scriptoriums, their pious hands crafting unbreakable ciphers. We witnessed the chilling efficiency of the Hashashin couriers and the ruthless data collection of the Venetian Council of Ten. Each system, from the noble house spy to the Cathar parfait moving in the night, was a thread in a vast, invisible tapestry of power. These networks were the true nervous system of the medieval world, the silent current that animated the bodies of kings and empires. They prove a timeless truth that knowledge has always been and will always be the ultimate source of influence. The grand narratives of thrones and battles were often mere echoes, decisions made long before in a coded letter or a memorized phrase.